My name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural organizations. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guests Minna Rothman, Karen McCarthy, and Kristina Goransson, three of the 6 contributors to the exquisite exhibit entitled When Fiber Speaks, 6 Conversations, which is on view at the Belmont Gallery of Art until December 24th. During the program, we'll be learning why and how this outstanding exhibit came about. We'll go on a behind-the-scenes tour and in the process come to better understand and appreciate the talented artists whose work is on display. Let's start by meeting our guests and then finding out all about When Fiber Speaks, 6 Conversations. Welcome, so delighted you're all able to be here. As you may know, a few days ago, I had the wonderful opportunity to view the exhibit and admire all of your work. Very eager to hear more about your craftsmanship and have you inform viewers. Before we get right to that, Minna, would you start us off by sharing a little bit about why and how the exhibit came about?
Yes, my pleasure. First, I want to thank you, Jay, for inviting us to your show. As some people may know, Belmont is very, very fortunate city to have their own gallery, which is a beautiful place in a municipal building named after Homer. And it's a wonderful opportunity for artists to exhibit there. When I learned last spring that the gallery is available at the end of the year, I said, well, maybe this is a time to have a fiber art show. So I talked with a couple of my fiber friends and the show was born. So we were working on it since last spring. My 3 friends that are here, 2 friends, 3 of us, Kristina and Karen, we have exhibited together before. And we are all members of Surface Design Association group for the Northeastern region. So I was very familiar with their work. We talked in the past about exhibiting together, not as part of a larger show as the A shows were. So they were first on the list to call, and they said, fantastic. Public usually welcomes fiber shows, but at the holiday time, the fiber provides so much sense of a comfort that it might be even more inviting to have a fiber art show. And that's the other 3 artists that I invited are also my fiber friends from Tapestry Weavers in New England. And we are also members of American Tapestry Alliance. And we have exhibited together in the past, but not all at once. So they are very well-established artists, and it was wonderful that they also agreed to participate.
Most definitely. I mean, it's quite an array of accomplishment and creativity, which is something to definitely be viewed and admired. For those who haven't had the chance to visit yet, could you give us a sense of how you and others laid out the exhibit?
I will call on Kristina about this because she is a really experienced curator. And she installed many exhibits. She was crucial. Karen and I were there too. We worked all together. But Kristina is the boss when it comes to installation. So well, the challenges that we had, Kristina can probably describe the best.
Okay, Kristina, please take over. And I know in a minute, we're fortunate to have you in the gallery to give us a panoramic view, but a few words before about some of the considerations.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first we had to collect all the work, and I think we had possibly some ideas of how we would organize the work and put it in the space. But once we get all the work here, I feel like most of that went out the window, and we really just spent time, I would say, together, all of us, figuring out what pieces worked well together, and to get the conversation going between the pieces, whether it was, color or color and shape, and to try to have, say, on the big wall that you're seeing now, to have all the artists represented. There was a lot of different considerations. I'll just step out of the way now and walk around the space, and you can take note of a piece that's hanging up above. It was a bit of a challenge to get up there and hang it, but it works really, really well. It's one of Barbara's tapestries. So I'm going to just show you the gallery.
Please do.
The big wall. We have some doors and walls going in and out, but we were able to use a lot of the little spaces pretty well, I would say.
And Kristina is so modest, but hanging that piece up from the ceiling, that was quite the feat. And she just took it on like, yeah, I can do this. And she did it. We stood in amazement.
No, it really comes together so well, and really appreciated and noticed the mixing of all your work throughout, and hence the conversation that you referred to was fabulous. And just seeing that space, as Minna said earlier, what a gem it is for Belmont to have that display area. And show after show, as you know better than me, is so outstanding work that it attracts. But let's continue now with the exhibit in here and show each of your work, and we'll get back to screen sharing a bit. And Karen, welcome you back, and also want to hear, before we talk about the pieces, just a little bit about your background, please, as an artist, and little development and your interest.
Sure. Thank you, Jay. Glad to be here. I actually grew up in Newton and went to the Newton schools, and credit a lot of my enthusiasm for art as which I've been doing, since for as long as I can remember. But I felt extremely fortunate to have good art programs throughout the years as I was growing up. And at Newton North High School, I was even able to take a fiber course for 2 years. And partly that's because the school was so large at the time, and it still is, but the program had that much breadth to it that it was really an exciting venture for me. So I continued. I went on to Mass College of Art and studied fiber there, and have taken various workshops and online classes and so on that are fiber related and mixed media and so on. So eventually I developed a way of working in collage, but the fiber element and approach has informed my ways of working throughout the years. And so a lot of my work resembles quilts. There's definitely some homage I'm paying to traditional quilts as well as contemporary quilt artists. And the way I put elements together and plan the pieces, I feel like that, again, is all related to my textile background, and also the attention to detail that I continue to pay. So, and I paint and print the imagery that I use. I'm very intrigued with exploring movement and color and pattern and texture, all of these elements that they are important to me to explore in the ways that I can print. And over the years, I've developed different methods of painting and printing that can allow me to explore those things and also build up layers of imagery so that there's a different kind of depth going on. And you can see in this piece, I'm often looking to create a reference to a window-like kind of feeling, and thinking about near and far and what might be the space that might be beyond, without getting too literal about it, but alluding to that.
Now, the colors and the shapes and the whole design, it's so appealing and engaging, a true talent. Maybe just a couple of words, how do you go from initial idea to the finished product?
Well, I periodically do these painting and printmaking methods, and I will create a lot of those at the time. And I find that that works best for me, so that if I can put aside a week or two for something, it allows me to really develop the technique better and find little ways of manipulating the materials and refining the colors and all of that. So that goes on periodically over the years, and I create a stash of materials that I can work with. And when I start a piece, I might have a sense of where I want it to go, but it's often just an organic thing that comes about. So I will start with one or two elements that I'm finding intriguing. In this case, clearly it was this large, somewhat landscaped element in the center. That's a fabric, actually. Most of about half of this piece is paper and about half of it is fabric. And then I'll start working with a couple of elements that have some connection, and then I'll look through my piles of materials and consider what else can work, what speaks to the other elements. And I'm often surprised at the connections that are happening. And then I just keep going with that. So I might have a stack of things to work with, and I'm reworking the composition. Eventually it goes up on the wall. And so there's a lot that goes on before I commit to gluing the piece together.
And we're going to show this outstanding piece just for a minute, because we're going to be moving on to Kristina, but I believe it's Blue Moon's variation.
That's right, yes. And this piece, I worked similarly. This is a fairly large piece for me. It's about over 40 inches wide, maybe 18 or so tall. I often work small, actually, and I love working with a small, intimate scale. But occasionally I will push and work larger. And these circle forms are fairly unusual for me, but it was an outgrowth of some other Blue Moons pieces I had done. And so I wanted to create that feeling of those sort of moving through this space, weaving in and out, and playing with the mystery that was evolving in this piece.
Wonderful. And as is the case with everyone's work, the images are nice, but really have to see the work in person to truly appreciate everything. Thank you. Kristina, want to continue with you, and before we hear about a couple of your submissions, just a little bit about your artistic background and interest, please.
Sure. Yeah, I think not a large part, but a part of it for me is definitely I was born in Sweden and lived there as a young person. And so not only within my family, my grandmother was a weaver, but she never saw herself as an artist. It was just something you did. If you were a farmer, you also wove amazing fabric and did all these things. That was just part of life. And so I was always kind of aware of the textiles. And then also within the public schools in Sweden, we had amazing crafts and textiles and woodworking. And then we moved to the United States, and at least where I moved to, there wasn't much, but I think I already knew that I was an artist or wanted to be an artist. And eventually I went to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, for furniture first, and loved it, but was always choosing between textiles as well. So eventually I went back to grad school for textiles at UMass Dartmouth. And there was a funny thing. I thought I knew what I was going to be doing, which was more dyeing and repeat pattern textiles. And I took a one evening workshop basically in felting, and it completely blew my mind, and I fell in love, and basically I've been felting ever since. Felting is it's unique in a lot of ways. It's unique because wool is magical and unique and has all these qualities that other fibers don't have. So right away, I realized I could take fluffy wool from a sheep and really just using water and a lot of friction, mostly meaning like my arm strength, I can create a fairly sturdy material and also create 3D forms. Now, the pieces in the show right now are more of my 2D wall pieces, but I also make more 3D sculptures as well. And so, yeah, so the pieces here, they have elements. There's a little bit of like relief, I would say, to them, but they are more wall pieces because I felt that also fit in maybe a little bit more to being in a group of mostly tapestry weavers. And yeah, it felt right for this show.
Just a couple words about the piece we're seeing now. I believe label it Struggle.
Yeah, it's so the kind of the pieces that are strung across, they start out towards the top, kind of organized, and then they get more and more jumbled as you go. And a lot of my pieces are kind of inspired by combinations of things. So the original idea was seeing all the refugees coming over in the Mediterranean and with their life vests on, and then in the dark water. And so that was part of the struggle with and the inspiration for this piece. Hard to say in the end how much gets relayed of that. And then the next piece is also sort of a combination. It's kind of seed-like or things coming to life. It's called Beginnings, right? And also I made this piece in a spring where we had a ton of snow come down, and then these tiny little plants would be coming through the snow. So it was very odd because we had all this white snow, and then you'd see tiny little green things coming up. So kind of also, again, a combination of inspiration.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Definitely stands out when touring the exhibit. Want to come back to you, Minna, and hear about your work as an artist. And this is a nice image to jump off on to hear about the process you go through.
Yeah, I started weaving relatively late in my life. Most of the weavers learn weaving from their grandmothers, and but I had an experience with the fiber when I retired. I had an accident and couldn't walk, and I started doing tapestries. And the most important part of that work is really that it allows me to let my creativity go to the highest level. This particular piece illustrates how much interpretation is involved in my work. I basically do everything that a painter does before I start my tapestry. So I work out the compositions, I actually can see in my head the tapestry before I start it. However, I reduce all that research down to a few lines, and then I let my creativity work. So it's very much the interpretation of that image that I have in my head. And this particular tapestry is called the Moon Glow, and I wanted to capture the reflection of the moon glow on the surface of the water, not the moonlight, but the moon glow almost as a promise of the light coming. So at the bottom of the piece, I used a technique widely used by Navajo weavers called the wedge weave, but I modified it because I really wanted to explore how I can generate this wavy feature of the water with the reflection, with a technique that allows me to have quite a control over the stability of the fabric. And then the upper part, the sky, was done just as it was shown on the previous image, where I just outlined how the glow would be woven in space. So when looked at from the distance, I think one can really capture the dimensionality that is in that piece.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's stunning. And for the sake of time, we're going to move on to your second piece we want to share, which has a fantastic story behind it. Maybe a short version, please.
Yes, very short. One of the things that inspire me is the space and time. And this is a third tapestry in a series of 3 tapestries called Ripples of Time. And I really wanted to, I always strive to create a sense of third dimension in a 2-dimensional visual art. So mainly this was inspired by my 50th reunion that I participated in. And I hoped that I reached a positive side of it. So yes, I'm very pleased with this piece. It's made of silk and wool and metallics, and I think that that third dimension is also coming through.
Very much so. Gorgeous. You know, in the time remaining, we want to squeeze in a little commentary about the other artists. And here we have Louise Abbott's piece. Just a quick word about this and another one of Louise's.
Louise Abbott has experience with textiles, including the textile production all her lives, and she weaves in all sorts of techniques. And this is a rug woven by her titled Unity, and she uses here the technique typical for the Southwest tradition of making rugs, but she made a contemporary rug. And she was mainly inspired by the way the colors unify together by using certain type of weaving elements.
Stand out for sure.
Yes.
And her other piece here?
This piece, this just shows the variety of techniques that she is really an expert. She is a member of Boston Weavers Guild, and she teaches tapestry there. So this particular sunset, she wove in a Scandinavian manner of weaving, where she used the appearance of transparencies to simulate or emulate the clouds in the sky. So she is very, very accomplished weaver.
Wonderful. And moving on to Barbara Levine we see here with a piece of hers. A few words about Barbara and then
Yeah.
what we're enjoying.
Barbara is a painter and tapestry weaver. She's a commission artist. So this is really a rare opportunity in this exhibit to see a few of her pieces together. This particular one received the Award of Excellence by the American Tapestry Alliance, and she finds her inspiration in nature, and it's also done in this case with a Swedish technique, which she learned from Swedish weaver Margareta Grandi Nettles. And by wearing the fiber and alternating it with just regular tabby weave, which is in linen, she manages to create almost a velvety surface of a butterfly wing. She really, in two of her pieces, she really studied the patterns of the butterfly wing, because she was interested in merging the contemporary art with a traditional method, which is weaving.
Now, it was very interesting to read
this is a
her
great
reflection about
her work.
the piece.
She has a lot of art in commercial and private collections.
And the last artist we want to highlight for a minute or so
Julia
is
Mitchell. This is a great inspiration for me. Julia Mitchell is actually my mentor in New England. I learned weaving in New Mexico with a couple of very well-established artists, but Julia is here in New England. She lives in Martha's Vineyard, and she has been weaving for a long time. She's a visual artist, also trained like Barbara, and but she always liked to weave, and she's the happiest that she can do something that she loves so much. So these are trees near her house in Martha's Vineyard. She comes from a family of artists from New York, and they used to spend summer vacations on Martha's Vineyard, where now she lives. And those are the trees that she has near her house. And she's a wonderful teacher and mentor and person, and I am just so thrilled that my tapestries are exhibited right to next to her tapestries. And this is a signal rock, a very well-known granite rock and Martha's Vineyard, which is also near her house. And it has been there since the glaciers moved it there. And so she really admired that rock. The photograph doesn't do it a favor. There's so much detail in this weaving that it's unbelievable. And so she felt that she needed to make a portrait of the rock. So that's,
and we've been able to enjoy it looking over Kristina's shoulder in the gallery throughout the program. Fabulous. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank all of you again for being here, for sharing your incredible work. I encourage people to make their way to the Belmont Gallery of Art, have the whole month of December up to December 24th to enjoy the work. Encourage people to go to the website, which we'll have listed, to find out about upcoming programming or related to the exhibit, and continued success with all your endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you so much for interviewing us.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure. I also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.